Hi guys, and thanks for joining me for this foretaste or Avant Goût for the AdTECH Out of Home Sydney conference, which is happening in a couple of weeks on the 7th of December. My name is Joe Copley. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Seedooh and also Chair of the AdTECH conference in Sydney. Perhaps you'd like to start by introducing yourselves.
Hi, I'm Jo Georges. I'm the Director of Data Partnerships for Australia and New Zealand, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing you all at the conference.
Hello, I'm Jean-Christophe Conti, known as JC, and I'm the CEO of VIOOH. VIOOH is a programmatic DOH SSP operating in 18 markets on a global basis, based out of London.
Hi guys, Brad Palmer here. National Programmatic Director at JCDecaux, Australia.
Well, welcome everybody. JC, I believe you're speaking at the AdTECH Out of Home Europe conference next week in Amsterdam, but understandably can't make it to Sydney the week after. But Joe and Brad, looking forward to seeing you there, I hope. And maybe have a drink or two afterwards as well. Just to give you a kind of a pre-taste, if you like, of what to expect on the day. We'll obviously be talking about what's been happening in AdTech for out of home this year. There's been an awful lot, and importantly, how did these developments improve digital out of home's ability to compete and to grow in an increasingly omni-channel world? And the key theme and a large part of that is measurement and particularly measurement of effectiveness and return on investment for out of home generally, but also for programmatic digital out of home. We've got a great case study of a campaign which proved to be actually very, very effective. And then to finish the day, we'll be talking about programmatic digital out of home and what the future looks like. So what will programmatic digital out of home look like next year is the question on everybody's lips, I think. JC, that's very relevant to a white paper which was published recently, VIOOH's State of the Nation, a very comprehensive study into intentions and expectations with respect to programmatic digital out of home in multiple markets around the world. Could you tell us a bit more about it and perhaps highlight some of the differences or the similarities between Australia and the other key markets?
Yeah, Joe, I mean, absolutely. It's been now meaning the third year in a row that we've been running this State of the Nation, as we like to call it. And we are trying obviously to grasp the major trends about the programmatic digital out of home business, right? How is it meaning building up? What are the trends? What to expect? And so on and so forth. And this year, we've actually, unlike last year, we've run it in 5 markets, and we have interviewed up to 200 senior executives from media agencies and brands in each of the 5 markets. Australia was one of the markets, together with the US, United Kingdom, Germany, and France. So we had more than 1,000 people contributing into this. And it was quite interesting because we were really able to have both a kind of specific questions, but also qualitative interview to get a bit more kind of context around how they are appreciating and what is their views on the evolution. In terms of takeaways, I think that we have meaning a few things which won't be a surprise for anybody, right? Adoption is growing, and that's one of the biggest trends, and that's something which is great, and we like that. And it has, in sort of a weird way, been accelerated by the pandemic. What we have obviously understood is that once people have been trying programmatic and get all the logic of the flexibility that it brings in terms of starting, stopping campaign, it's very hard for them actually to get back to a format where they have to commit to a campaign that's going to be running in 3 months in advance and so on and so forth. And the current uncertainties linked to the pandemic have made that level of flexibility a very clear asset, very clear benefit for them. Also, what has been quite interesting is the fact that they have been able to include the campaign and the programmatic campaigns into their multi-channel campaigns. And that was a real game changer in a sense of being enabled to deliver both on the brand standpoint, which obviously digital out of them has been very strong about and very well known for, but also now the usage of data and a better capacity to actually leverage a programmatic campaign has really helped to get much greater level of performance. And these outcomes are actually very valued. And it's also very in building itself in terms of process, right? Because you've got not clear cut as to who is responsible for these programmatic digital out-of-home positioning, whether that's within the out-of-home teams, within the media agencies, or whether the digital and programmatic team. So we need to understand that it's still a fairly young kind of trend, right? This is a shift in the industry, and it has obviously to be more structured. But with the fact that the adoption is growing, I have no doubt that things gonna actually be clearer in the years to come. And I think that both media agencies and brands are starting to really get more educated about the medium, which is great, and starting to invest in specific expertise on programmatic out-of-home, which is absolutely one of the key drivers too. Now, if we are talking, back to your question, if we are talking really specifically about what has been some of the key points around the Australian research we've conducted, I think that your fellow colleagues, Joe, are really, really focused on creative opportunities, right? And trying to really have an impactful message, which has been really well appreciated, and messages that are really truly engaging with the consumers. And that's one of the kind of key points. The other topic is that, as I mentioned, and that was not just in your market, but more importantly in your market, the fact that there was a greater level of flexibility to stop and start campaigns depending on the lockdown kind of content and messages. Cost is always a point, and obviously we've seen this in the feedback that we've received in terms of reducing the cost or reducing the wastage about where the ads meaning are displayed, but that's not something specific to the market, but it was also present there. And I would say that advertisers obviously are more likely to buy as part of programmatic digital teams, but it's still planned in the out-of-home team. So you understand that this point is still not clear, but that's all across the board. But that's also something which is true for the Australian market.
Yeah, sure. There's still some way to go, I think, and some work to do. But it's a very encouraging view from, pardon the pun, the VIOOH State of the Nation study. Brad, from your perspective at JCDecaux, how are you seeing things for this year and looking forward into next year?
Yeah, well, I think definitely the initial uptake of programmatic has exceeded our expectations at JCDecaux for 2021, probably by about 40% actually. So that's a really positive result considering that both Sydney and Melbourne were in such extended lockdowns. We've run campaigns for up to 80 advertisers now, and across every holding group and a bunch of independent agencies as well. So no doubt some agencies and advertisers have taken it more seriously, but others have sort of evolved from that test and learn to being a lot more consistent with their activity with us, which is obviously great to see. I guess we've spent most of this year sort of trying to educate and guide the market around these best practices, traditional and programmatic differences, and what the kind of main reasons that an advertiser should actually run a programmatic out-of-home campaign. So I think as we head to 2022, we probably should really see some maturity take place in sort of three key areas that I see. First one's probably standardization around the impression multiplier, which is something that everyone's been calling for a while. And with that comes improvements to move, which I think are really important. Second part is advertisers starting to embrace the always on deals rather than the current sort of campaign by campaign approach. And that's going to bring some sort of efficiencies in sort of both sides of the fence as it starts to scale. And the last point really is that additional high quality out-of-home inventory coming into the market. So for example, we're excited to launch into both the airports and the rail environments in the coming months. And there's obviously competitors that are jumping into the market each and every month as well. So I think that's going to really benefit for next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And agree, standardization of a number of things is critical. There's been a lot of progress this year in Australia with respect to that, and we'll touch on more of that in more detail at the conference soon. Joe, does the positivity and the optimism ring true from a TradeDesk perspective? How are you seeing things?
Absolutely. There has been a lot of interest, and I feel like it's definitely grown more and more, especially since lockdowns have finally seemed to cease, at least hopefully for now and for good. But we've seen a lot of interest. I think there has been a little bit of ambiguity or inconsistency with regards to where programmatic digital out of home actually sits. So, I think there's still a lot more of a learning and education piece that we need to take to market, in terms of upskilling the programmatic teams and educating them within the digital out of home, the programmatic digital out of home space, as well as upskilling the traditional out of home buyers into what is actually available, because there does seem to be some disconnect. So we're having a lot of conversations with the agencies on what we can do and how each side of the pie works. But it has been amazing. Overall, what we've been able to do with both data, the creative decisioning, as JC mentioned earlier, is a very big piece that is a lot of clients have actually asked for. And I think Brad has actually even seen a couple of campaigns of recent where clients are actually wanting to get smarter and do things that they would in a traditional environment, such as book a range of panels in a sequence, which is something that we can do with the JCD and VIOOH guys. So it's been a very interesting and a great opportunity for everyone in market to actually upskill. And I think we've been almost forced into a situation where we've grown programmatic digital out of home significantly larger than we had originally had anticipated because of the ability to stop with programmatic. And I think that feature is something that we're still educating the market on. So I think there's only going to go up, and it's only going to increase significantly more next year.
Yeah. Great, that's really exciting, and some common themes coming out in what everybody's saying about some of the areas that we need to progress on as a sector, both buy side and sell side, and obviously the ad tech providers as well. One of the questions that occurs to me when I think about all of these brands and agencies motivated, it seems, to grow their programmatic digital out of home investments next year, and JC, you mentioned it it comes up in the State of the Nation study. Can I get your views on how these brands and agencies should be evaluating the success of their venture or their endeavors into programmatic digital out of home? JC, have you got some examples or some thoughts on that?
Sure. Well, this is the classic trade-off, right? Is that good for branding? Is that good from a performance standpoint? Meaning it's a bit of the always meaning key questions around the clock, right? And sometimes obviously you've got the approach to say, well, if it's good for branding, it cannot be good for performance, and the other way around. Well, actually here, I must say that this medium was naturally very strong from a branding standpoint. And here the programmatic dimension is actually really bringing this additional capability with data to be good from a performance standpoint, or actually to enhance that dimension, which is very interesting. At the end of the day, it really depends on whether the campaign is focused on the brand or performance metric, and we all appreciate that. But what is definitely very interesting here is that with the data, and you can actually start to measure a lot of metrics like footfall in stores or increased sale uplift. And these are very tangible metrics which have usually been obviously managed from a performance campaign standpoint. I'm going to give you a few examples. Nespresso in the UK have used in one of their awarded campaign from a programmatic DOOH standpoint in a shopping center, in a shopping mall. They have used a digital doorman to actually measure footfall and to be able to display what was the number of people in that specific shop at any moment of the day, to be able to actually give an indication about the queue time. And that was displayed within the screens within the shopping mall. And therefore, it was very interesting because they try obviously to make sure that people were actually have a reminder whether they had obviously to buy some capsules from Nespresso and to understand what was the right time for them to come and have a greater client experience within the shop. So you definitely can understand that these kind of message are working in both things. They are pushing the brand, but they are also having a real impact, an impact that was tracked because you can measure footfall. As a matter of fact, the campaign drove 19.5%, if I recall well, increase in sales, which is quite significant, you would definitely agree. And on top, the return on investment was 5x the total investment. So this is where you start to have both the branding dimension and the measurement and the return on investment. So it was absolutely meaning a smash, and we absolutely meaning enjoyed that, and the client was very, very happy. So that's one example. But if we want to find obviously examples which are closer to your market, we had a very, very good campaign for Tourism Tasmania, and they were actually using the programmatic out-of-home kind of approach for their domestic tourism campaign, and they were trying obviously to target in the streets, on the large format street also, be able, meaning to really do that in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide, and Perth. And the fact that they wanted to do that in the time where there was meaning changing rules from a lockdown standpoint was definitely not making a classic campaign easy. But here, the capacity to have a stop and go was really able to provide additional level of flexibility. And they were really meaning able to stop campaigns or restart it whenever the rules were changing, depending on the city. So that was something very interesting for them. But they were also able to maximize the return on investment on their campaign budget because they were able to actually measure the mobile devices IDs that were really actually coming to Tasmania, and therefore being able to have meaning a tracking and measure the effect. And they were doing that during the 3 months post-campaign, and meaning the results were absolutely very, very good. We cannot release meaning the exact figures, but they've been keeping bookings. So we do believe that actually that was pretty good for them. Yeah,
that's great. In the strangest possible way, and I don't think anyone would ever suggest that there's a COVID silver lining, but it certainly presented the opportunity to make the most of the flexibility through programmatic digital out of home in this market where everything was open, shut, and changing so suddenly, I guess. Joe, coming back to the original question about measurement and effectiveness, what's your perspective as an omni-channel DSP?
A lot of what JC has actually said has been great. So I think one of the key angle for us of bringing programmatic digital out of home is understanding the role that digital out of home plays in a unified, holistic, omni-channel strategy. No longer channels actually seen siloed, and we've gone through this with print, we've gone through this with CTV or BVOD. So it was only a matter of time before we went through the exact same scenario with digital out of home. So I think it's really important that we remember that no one really lives in a siloed world. That it's important to make sure that you bring it all together in a holistic approach. So even dedicating a small amount of your traditional out-of-home budget or a digital budget into the programmatic digital out-of-home category is where we're starting to get clients and brands and agencies to try programmatic digital out of home, because it's one of those things. It's once you pop, you can't stop. So everyone has generally come back. It is a matter of getting them, hooked and actually understanding the value and the possibilities of running it with a full omnichannel DSP. So I think we've, as an industry, sort of moved away from a range of attributions that were traditionally seen as a digital, which has just opened up the door for running campaigns through a full omnichannel platform. the data and measurement, if we sort of tap into that, I think has only sort of expanded that. So there are brands and clients have been using their own first-party data or leveraging additional third-party data assets. And mobile data is, or device ID data is one that we've worked extensively with. And we've obviously got UID 2.0 included within that data set. So Unified ID 2.0, just for those that don't know, is another identity which brings devices and another whole range of ecosystems into one identifier that allows cross-channel advertising. So it means that we can actually understand if someone has watched a CTV campaign, heard a radio ad, and gone past out of home screen, and then actually measure it all the way through to the footfall, which is extremely important. And one of those things that we've been talking about as an industry for many, many years. And I think we're finally getting to a stage where we can offer full closed loop campaigns and that measurement across the entire eco. And the ability to actually use any data and not be limited to maybe what was traditionally seen as just geolocation data. And I know the JCD team have had extensive data partners as well as other partners along the way, but it's very difficult when you're limiting providers to only use data that sits within your own environment, as opposed to allowing them to use any data source, any provider, anywhere that they want to across the entire channel and across their entire campaign. So I think overall, from both the strategy and a measurement point of view, it's once people fully understand it, and unfortunately, I know that we've been doing this conference excluding last year, but for about 3 years, I think there is still a big education place that needs to actually be taken up before we get to the situation where brands and agencies can actually fully embrace their strategy and run full measurement campaigns and actually understand how it works in a full omnichannel approach.
Yeah, I agree. There's certainly a lot more to go there. And the reality is that the data set that makes most sense is different depending on the advertiser, depending on the campaign objectives, and the way that it's implemented and put into market. So it's not, there certainly isn't a catch-all answer to it, is there? But there is a case study as part of the conference where we will talk specifically about success metrics from a really successful programmatic digital out-of-home campaign. So looking forward to that. Brad, from a media owner's perspective, JCDecaux have been really embracing programmatic digital out-of-home this year. How much of the talk and the discussion is about measurement of success in the campaigns that you're involved with?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest indicator of success for campaigns for us is really the fact of repeat business coming back in, and 70% of our revenue has been repeat business. So obviously these campaigns are working for clients and they're comfortable with the approach and they're continuing to go on with it. I think there's sort of been differing levels of measurement across the campaigns that we've been running, and most of it's been sitting with DSPs like TheTradeDesk and our other kind of partners as well to sort of measure those campaigns. And I don't know whether it's clients that want to measure it initially, prove it, and then go forth, or whether there's going to be clients that want to measure all the time. So I think, the footfall attribution, the website visitation, the brand metrics, they're probably the three main areas that we're seeing clients looking at sort of measuring their actual programmatic out-of-home campaigns. So, we've seen some fantastic results. Agencies and advertisers have shared results with us. I can't share any now. But if we go back to the repeat business factor, I think obviously these campaigns are working really well in the approach. And actually having sort of tangible website visitation data and those kind of things is probably not something that I expected getting back into out-of-home after being in it many years ago. But you can actually prove website visitation based on people who are exposed to out-of-home. And I think that's going to come closer to just being a natural part of campaigns in the future. But at the moment, there's a bit of sort of probably manual nature between these kind of studies, between the providers and the media owners. So once that gets to this level of kind of scalability, I think it'll be sort of embraced a bit more.
Yeah. Great. All right. This is really good, guys. To finish up, I'd just like to get a relatively quick response to a fairly pointed question. The last panel of the day at the conference is called "Why and How Programmatic Digital Out of Home Will Be Even Better Next Year." So to finish up, if you could each give us I think there are some really strong themes here, but if you can each give us your favorite single theme that stands out as the most important catalyst for continued success in programmatic digital out of home. Who wants to go first? JC?
I can go first. Well, as our State of the Nation report has highlighted, right? Understanding the best way to include out of home in the multi-channel programmatic campaigns will be, I believe, the step change for success. And it's absolutely realistic to think that this widespread education will happen next year. We are seeing a huge appetite to understand best practices in the area from our multi-channel DSPs, such as TheTradeDesk, and assessing obviously the digital budget through programmatic. I do believe has to be the way for digital out of home forward.
Great, thanks, JC. Joe?
If I can jump straight back, after that, because I think there are a lot of themes that I think we have definitely touched on it throughout, but it definitely has to go back to exactly as Jay said, running omni-channel strategies. But if we take a little bit of a step back, it is the education. I think we've done a lot of work this year specifically. I think we're in a really good space and much better than I thought we would be 2 or 3 years ago, being part of these conferences. But I think if we can really make sure that over the next 3 to 6 months, we're educating the market and educating people what a full omnichannel strategy can actually look like, and educating how a DSP can actually work on some of those upstream traditional out-of-home buyers, we'll be able to leverage both traditional digital budgets and out-of-home budgets and actually make sure that we are fully running a omnichannel strategy. And I think that has to be the key factor that we're pushing and educating.
Thanks, Joe. Brad?
Yeah, I think the main thing next year is actually audience consistency. So audience consistency from a measurement point of view. So that'll be driven by the standardization of the impression multiplier approach. And I think importantly, consistency in the actual audiences being in out-of-home environments. So hopefully, touch wood, the pandemic's behind us and people will continue to flock back to our environments and we won't have to worry about the pandemic anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Agree with all of those things, and looking forward to hearing what the panel come up with as an extension of that or an expansion of that at the conference in a couple of weeks. So thanks all. It's really good to see you.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I'll be curious to see if someone mentions the measurement piece, because I feel like that's the other one that is definitely touch and go that a lot of people are going to be interested in. So I'm much looking forward to hearing what they say about that.
You mean measurement of ROI and effectiveness, or measurement of audiences, or something else?
Both, frankly. Yeah, it all goes hand in hand. I don't think it'll be audiences specifically, but I think they'll be touching on verification and measurement of success of campaigns. So I think it'll be an interesting mix of the two.
Yeah, I agree. And my view is that to keep people coming back for more, and therefore keep growing the opportunity, people need to have confidence that it's working, and however they define working is the thing that they need to be measuring their success against. So yeah, a number of things. But thanks, really good to see you all, and to catch up. This is an incredibly fascinating piece of an always evolving media puzzle. It's a small piece, but it's a really interesting piece. So for viewers of this video, the Avant Goût, if you can be in Sydney on December the 7th, there'll be more discussion, actual real life discussion about AdTech for out of home, and you'll probably find a link to the agenda somewhere on your screen close to the video now. But thanks everybody. See you soon.
Thanks,
Thank you, Joe.
Cheers.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.